Hello, my name is Anton Umnikov. I'm a Senior Cloud Solution Architect at InterSystems. And today I'm very happy to present you FHIR Message Transformation Services. This is the new service that we released just a few months ago, but even more importantly, it represents a couple of totally new ways this service would be visible to you. First of all, we cooperated very closely with our partner AWS while working on this service, and secondly, it represents a new way for you as a customer to access and use this service. It all started last year during Amazon's regular re:Invent conference, where they announced a new service called Amazon Health Lake. Amazon Health Lake enables customers to securely store, query, analyze data in a FHIR format. Essentially, it's a REST FHIR API built by Amazon with Amazon scales and tight integration with other Amazon services. Authentication is done through Amazon Way and Amazon Signature. It has very powerful natural language processing to understand unstructured data such as doctor notes and extract meaningful information from there. And it tightly integrates with tools like SageMaker and QuickSight, allowing you to analyze personal and population level healthcare data at scale. And we're really talking about Amazon scales, terabytes and petabytes of data. So Amazon announced that a little bit less than a year ago, and at the same time they approached us to help them to deal with customers who are not capable of pushing their data into AWS Health Lake, Amazon Health Lake in a FHIR format. So, why FHIR? Well, this slide has a lot of information on it. I would not go into any technical or business details of why FHIR is important and why it became a de facto standard for exchanging and storing healthcare information. We do have a couple of dedicated sessions on Global Summit about FHIR. One thing I want to draw your attention to is the last bullet point here. You might have heard of the CMS 1500, which is the regulation that basically mandates that if you are the organization or provider dealing with health information, you essentially should provide some of your information in a form of FHIR R4. So not only it became the most useful and most widely adopted standards, it became to mandated by the government. I live in Canada. Canada is also moving towards FHIR, and as a patient, as a taxpayer, I'm very happy with it. Now, what about systems that are not yet compatible with FHIR? There are plenty of them. Lab systems, pharmacy systems, and others that still use other formats to exchange and publish their health information, right? For those systems, we created FHIR Message Transformation Service to basically enable these systems to convert their data into FHIR format and push their data into Amazon Health Lake. So, how does it look like for a customer? We tried hard to keep it really simple, and I think we succeeded in that. And the high-level overview would be just magic black box that works. You push HL7 or CCDA in there, it outputs FHIR and submits that into Amazon Health Lake in a customer's account. Right? We can stop the presentation right there because it's, in essence, that's it. It's as simple as magic black box that works, but we would have 15 minutes of our time slot to fill. So let's dig a little bit deeper. Data originates in the S3 bucket. So customer can submit that from either on-prem or from their cloud system into S3 bucket. FHIR Message Transformation Service would pick it up and process that. By the way, alongside S3 bucket, we do have open sourced gateway that can talk into good old TCP/IP or MLLP and still push data into the health message transformation service, right? And besides Health Lake, as an endpoint, we introduce another S3 bucket if you want to use it as part of your application and introduce some downstream processing, and InterSystems' own FHIR accelerator service. Again, you're very welcome to attend sessions about FHIR and FHIR accelerator service on this Global Summit too. But you basically have a choice of few formats and a few endpoints. Now, keeping with the theme of the magic black box, what do you need to configure this system? All you need here is the configuration for your data source, bucket name with appropriate credentials, then transformation type. It can be either HL7 to FHIR or CCDA to FHIR. Again, down the road we'll introduce more. And you need the endpoint configuration, which can be Health Lake with appropriate credential, S3 bucket, or your own FHIR accelerator service. Right? As simple as that. So with this, let's go into the demo. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to just try it out. Let's say you have your own HL7 message and you want to see how the health message transformation service to approach it. It's very easy. You log in into the service, you pass your HL7 in, and you click on transform, or you can even click on fill the sample and it would pass some sample data for you. So, click on transform, right, and you can view the resulted FHIR document generated. Right? You don't have to create anything, you don't need to have any bucket credentials or Health Lake credentials, and so on. To really put the system to work, we need to create pipeline. Let's create one that would push data from S3 into Amazon Health Lake. But before we do that, let's check that we have our S3 bucket. Yes, I have one, Anton demo 01. I even created a couple of folders, error and inbound folder. And I do have a Health Lake instance. We will be using demo Health Lake. Right, I'll keep these IDs handy. Right, all I need to create a new transformation pipeline is to enter the name of the pipeline itself. Right, then a pair of credentials we need to use, and specify the input location. Input location is name of my bucket and optionally a folder in the bucket where message transformation service would expect inbound HL7 to arrive. As you can see, I can test if credentials do match the bucket and I have all the necessary permissions, and they do. I can do the same with the test. Now, for the target, as you can see, it asks me for credentials again. That's actually a very powerful thing, because what you can do here is you create many-to-one kind of scenarios where you push data from multiple sources, like from your partners, from your EMR system, and so on, into the single Health Lake or S3 bucket or FHIR accelerator service. That essentially creates kind of data warehouse with multiple inputs, and sometimes you get into sensitive situation where your partners should not necessarily share the credentials, and this is exactly what we let you do here. Right. So we specified Health Lake, we tested that connection is accepted, and within around 20 seconds our pipeline would start to work. All we need to do now is to go into our inbound folder and drop few HL7 files. I have 3 of them right here. So let me drop them into inbound folder. And as soon as upload completed, right, we see that objects already, come on, objects already disappeared. Right, that means our pipeline is working and actively processing data. Okay, we see that 3 messages was received, all successfully processed, and we got 27 resources pushed into Health Lake. Like, we have no errors here. We would see errors like right in here in invalid messages, but we don't have any. If we would, you would see them in the list, and they are easy to analyze and diagnose. Now, let's take a look how this looks like on the Health Lake side. Let's go into our Health Lake instance and run query. Like, you can do the same thing in a Postman if you want, or your favorite REST client. Let's search patient resource and patient identifier. To get the identifier, let's look at the message itself. Like, let's pick one of them. Here we go. So we kind of know that patient ID segment, which is third, and the third element of this segment, it's typically the ID within HL7 message. That's what we're going to use. But while we're here, we see that our patient is suffering from diabetes, and we see that in 2 segments here. Right, one of them is a ZAWZ segment that typically not part of any standard data transformation, but we take care to package that in a way that Health Lake can apply their natural language processing and extract structural data from there. So let's keep going. Let's grab our patient ID. Copy that and use that as a parameter for our query. And here we go. We have a patient from Cambridge, Massachusetts, and the patient name is John Smith. Here we go, John. Let's double check that. Yep, that's exactly the patient we were dealing with, John Smith from 1 Merle Drive, Massachusetts. Now, besides free text, Health Lake gives us a few very interesting examples that highlights some Health Lake specific syntax. Right, in this case, we're looking for the document reference and search parameter. If you're familiar with FHIR, you probably would be scratching your head right now and saying what it is. Okay. Well, that's Health Lake natural language processing in action. Right? We probably don't have any patients that have hypertension, but as we noted, at least one of the patients in our data set has diabetes. So let's search for patients with diabetes in free text attached to our format. And here we go. The document that contains reference to the diabetes, that's probably exactly the document that we were looking at just a minute ago. Like, that contains the notice to diabetes in a free text. Like, here we go. It's visible through Health Lake. Okay, at this point you might have a few questions, and let me at least try to answer some of them. Well, how do I try it with my own messages? Like, you saw how I did, how I used demo tool to try to translate my own HL7 message into FHIR. You can do exactly the same. Just log into the service, copy and paste your own HL7 or CCDA, and hit translate. And you would see what kind of FHIR documents as transformation service would generate for you. If you really want to start using it, create pipelines, move data from S3 to another S3 bucket or to Health Lake, you need to subscribe to the service. You do that with our AWS Marketplace, and the easiest way to find a message transformation service there is to search for HL7 as a keyword. Okay. To use it, again, you saw that it's very simple. You specify source, target with appropriate credentials, and the transformation type. Okay. How can you embed it into your own applications, your own workflows? Right? It's also very simple. You can use S3 to S3 pipeline that takes HL7 or CCDA from S3 bucket and put that into your own S3 bucket. Since the target bucket is again your own S3 bucket, you can use every tool that's available for you at Amazon to deal with objects in this bucket. For instance, you can create SQS SNS notification, and every time transformation service would output something in this S3 bucket, you would be able to run some custom workflow that would do whatever you need with this file. Introduce additional processing, push it into your own FHIR repository, or let's say Google Healthcare API, for instance. Now, how do you pay? That's interesting. It's a consumption-based model, so you pay for number of messages that we process for you. Right? It's really pennies. Since you subscribe to the service through AWS Marketplace, it's part of your AWS bill. So if service is not running, is not doing any work, you pay absolutely nothing. Right? If you're starting to push millions of messages through, you would start to see some additional line item on your AWS bill. And the first 1 million HL7 messages are free. So there is no harm in trying it whatsoever. Please do. Now, last thing, how do you manage it? How do you provision the instances? How do you do backups? You don't. We do that all for you. That's the beauty of fully managed service. Right? There is nothing for you to do in terms of managing. Okay, and last but not least, you may ask yourself, what makes InterSystems a qualified partner to do this kind of work with Amazon HealthLake? Well, InterSystems is industry leader in healthcare interoperability for quite a few years. We have a lot of experience in the field, in the events like Connectathon. We know how to over 50 different kinds of HL7 P2 messages. We achieved the highest level of AWS technology competency, which is AWS healthcare competency for any company doing work in healthcare on AWS. So Amazon certified that we can be trusted literally. And year over year, we've been named as a leader in multiple analyst categories, awards, and so on and so forth. So even though the service is very simple, intuitive, and easy to use, there is a lot of work put in that, and InterSystems history, all the InterSystems experience with healthcare interoperability is fully behind the service. And on this note, thank you very much, and maybe we have time for some questions.